This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. They say you can't build a cycling city unless you're as flat as the Netherlands. But how true is that? In this video, I want to look at hills, how big of a barrier they are, and how people and cities adapt. This video has two parts: a case study of how people handle a major bike route on a hill in Montreal, then a look at a secret second city that's even hillier and has a unique approach to dealing with it that I haven't seen elsewhere yet. Montreal isn't exceptionally hilly like San Francisco with its numerous peaks and valleys, but it's not flat like the Netherlands either. Downtown was built on the slopes of Mount Royal, and anyone biking to or through downtown from the north or south will encounter some hills. There are also hills in numerous other parts of the city. The University of Montreal campus is quite steep. Here's one that stands out: Berry Street, the main bike route connecting downtown with neighborhoods to the north. I'm pretty fit and I can still get winded going up this, especially if I try to keep a good pace. You see people huffing and puffing, standing up for more power, and occasionally walking their bike. With the help of the bike counter, which is actually located down there right before the hill starts, I want to better understand how people respond to hills. Does this hill discourage some people from biking? As you can see, the route gets plenty of use, especially in rush hour. It recorded 1.2 million cyclists last year, and averaged 6,600 per day last month. I actually can't say that nobody is put off. Maybe those numbers would be higher if there wasn't a hill here. But the hill hasn't stopped it from becoming a very well-used bike route. This was actually one of the first on-street bike lanes in Montreal, visible on this bike map from 1990. According to the bike counter last month, 54% of trips went down versus 46% going up. That works out to 1 in 5 trips down the hill not having a corresponding trip up the hill. To understand what's going on, I collected my own data to separate different types of cyclists. I counted bikes here for a half hour, split between morning rush hour and evening rush hour to try to get a representative picture of the day. I counted 60% of cyclists going down and 40% going up, a little more imbalanced than the bike counter averages. But I was mainly interested in the uphill and downhill patterns for different types of bikes. For regular bikes, non-electric personal bikes, I counted 110 going uphill and 162 going down. In contrast to bike share, which you could leave downtown if you wanted, you pretty much have to take your personal bike home at the end of the day somehow. Seeing 52 more people going downhill here might reflect people taking a different route out of downtown to minimize the hill. I've heard of people taking this street half a kilometer away to avoid the steeper Berry Hill even if it's a worse route. Some people might also be taking their personal bikes home on the metro. Bikes on the metro aren't that common, but they are allowed, even at rush hour at the moment. For electric micromobility, mainly e-bikes and e-scooters, I saw 19 going up and 8 going down. Electric assist is obviously great for going up hills, but these are people's own devices, so I don't know how or why they're avoiding downhill. Maybe it's just a fluke. Next is Bixi Bike Share, the main reason I wanted to do this count. You can drop off a bike share anywhere, so I wondered how many people take it down the hill and leave it, coming back up by transit or even just walking. I saw 29 Bixis going up, but 3 times as many going down, so lots of people do this, leaving their Bixi at the bottom and coming back some other way. All of that relies on workers rebalancing bikes around the system. They use trucks, so to some extent that reduces the environmental benefits of cycling, although each truck can carry dozens of bikes. This one is carrying 49 bikes that are easily visible, and possibly more that we can't see from this angle. I counted electric Bixis separately, and they were the opposite, more going up than down, although the numbers are lower because they're a smaller part of the fleet. Electric Bixis cost more, so some people take a regular Bixi down and then an electric one back up. I also counted cargo bikes in their own category, but there weren't too many of them. You probably noticed, but this road is actually a trench under another road. It was dug in the 1950s to speed up traffic. Despite the cyclist in the construction shot here in 1959, it wasn't actually built with cyclists in mind as far as I know because the bike path here came a few decades later. But it did happen to help cyclists by spreading the elevation gain over twice the distance. If everyone had to climb this steeper grade instead, the route might be much less popular. If cities can do engineering projects like this for cars, why not bikes too in hilly places? So that's a case study for how people handle a hill in Montreal. Maybe some people are put off from cycling altogether, but the hill hasn't stopped it from being a well-used bike route. Most people bike up and down on personal non-electric bikes, although electric micromobility has some representation too. 1 in 5 trips down the hill doesn't have a corresponding trip up. Roughly half of that seems to be personal bikes going down and then taking a different route home, or maybe taking their bike on the metro. The other half is people taking advantage of bike share to go down the hill and then finding some other way back up. Probably transit, but maybe some walking or taxis too. But what about cities with more extreme hills? This is Quebec City, Montreal's smaller cousin, 3 hours down the river. Quebec City is built on an escarpment, so while many neighborhoods are internally flat, going between them can be very steep. There are quite a few places with stairs, sometimes even integrated into the sidewalk. The hills give the city some of its charm, but I'm not gonna lie, it's steep enough that people are reasonable to ask whether bikes can really work here. Here's their secret weapon, a fully electric bike share system called Vélo. Every single one of these bikes is electric. But it gets even better, they're exceptionally affordable. You can get a yearly pass for $162, giving you unlimited 45-minute rides. Frequent electric bike share use in other cities could easily cost that in a month. Imagine you want to take 2 30-minute trips per day, 3 days a week. In Montreal's publicly run bike share system, that's $160 a month. Acoustic bikes are much cheaper, but we're looking at electric here. In Halifax's private bike share system, that's $250 a month, at least based on this video. Bird doesn't clearly list the price on their website. Compared to a car, all of that isn't too bad. But Quebec City's pass works out to about $25 a month, and you can actually use it as much as you want. You could take 10 trips a day, 7 days a week if you wanted. Just keep each trip under 45 minutes and you're still paying $25 a month for electric bikes to smash hills. Wow. What's the catch? Quebec City has even harsher winters than Montreal, and batteries just don't handle cold very well, especially when left outside, so the system is only available May to mid-November. Also, bike share typically requires a subsidy, especially for affordable e-bikes like this. It looks like the system gets $2 million a year from the region of Quebec City. I happen to think that's a pretty fair price to support healthy, green transportation, but it is a cost to mention. While it's only available just over half the year, Vélo has been really successful. In 2024, it saw 1.3 million trips, which is roughly on par with Vancouver and Philadelphia, much bigger cities whose bike share systems are available year-round. Ridership has been up in 2025, and they're hoping for 1.6 million trips by the end of the season in November. Quebec City is on its way to having one of the most used bike share systems on the continent, despite not even having 1 million people in its metropolitan area. And did I mention that the system is only a few years old, starting with just 100 bikes in 2021? This year, 2025, that's up to 1,800, and they're hoping for 3,300 within a few years. Here's a newly upgraded bike lane in Quebec City on Côte de la Pente Douce, which actually translates to Gentle Slope Road. A slope of 5% isn't exactly gentle. It's slightly steeper than the Barry Hill in Montreal, but it's gentler than the insane 12 or 15% slopes elsewhere here. This bike route has existed for at least a decade, but as late as 2023, it was quite narrow, which is really not comfortable going up a hill because you're slower and maybe a little wobblier. We don't have bike counter data for it, but the Strava Global Heat Map, which admittedly captures a lot of athletic recreational riders, shows this route being pretty well used. Quebec City is really a city to watch because it's almost the exact opposite of ideal cycling conditions. It's very hilly, especially when going between Lower Town and Upper Town, and every year it literally gets as much snow as the Dutch get in 20 or 30 years. And yet there's a ton of momentum with a rapidly expanding hill-proof bike share system, and a growing bike network that's clearly taken a lot of lessons from Montreal's expansion. I didn't want to get too in the weeds about different bike routes in Montreal earlier in the video, but this is interesting. This bike route in the same direction as Barrie, a kilometer away, actually sees more people going up it than down. I wondered if this was an alternate uphill route that people were using to avoid Barrie, and it might be. But then I realized it might also be a result of this route in the middle, that because it's a one-way street only goes southbound down the hill into downtown. Having more routes down the hill than up the hill probably contributes to an imbalance of cyclists overall. Do hills discourage cycling? Probably to some degree, but it's not all or nothing. Routes like this might have even more cyclists if they were flat, but they still manage to get a lot of bikes. You don't need perfect conditions to have a pretty good cycling network and bike culture. In Montreal, at least, a reasonably but not extremely hilly city, e-bikes are useful but by no means necessary. Most people handle hills by slowing down, changing gears, or standing up. In particularly hilly cities like Quebec City, e-bikes are closer to being the default option, and cities should do everything they can to support them, including fully electric bike share. In terms of infrastructure, even if you can't avoid hills, you can strategically place bike routes on less extreme hills. You can also beef up the infrastructure on hills so that people are comfortable slowing down or wobbling if necessary. And if your city is really serious about cycling, engineering projects to actually manage the grade or slope of streets in key locations can help a lot. Oh, and if you have especially steep segments that require stairs, don't forget to include a bike ramp on the right. It helps a lot. And for people without a bike going down, why not a slide? This video is based on 2 examples, Montreal and Quebec City. Lots of other cities out there are hillier, or they have different configurations of hills. If you're from another city with hills, like Seattle, Lisbon, Edinburgh, Wellington, let us know in the comments what cycling is like, how individual cyclists and local governments deal with hills, and whether you think it really is possible to build a cycling city with less than ideal terrain. Thanks for watching through to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and a special thanks to our supporters on Patreon.